let's get right back into it. I wanted to ask you about squares in people's charts.
Mhm.
So, do you have, I guess, advice, or do you look at people's squares and help them like figure out how to balance that and how to best
A little
navigate
bit. Yeah, it's not
squares?
something I concentrate on a lot.
Mhm.
There are the major aspects are conjunction, trine, square, and sextile. And the squares, it often causes difficulty, like because this planet doesn't agree with that planet.
Mhm.
For instance, I have moon square Mars when I was born, so I have a temper. And everybody who was born moon square Mars, almost everybody has a temper. Uh,
Oh, okay.
but also, that's a disadvantage of it. An advantage of it is you are very energetic, especially when you're young. Usually, moon square Mars doesn't have a lot of fear. They
Mhm.
tend to be aggressive or assertive, um, get into adventures. Moon Square Mars is very good for people like editors who have to cut and prune things.
Mhm.
Good for surgeons. Um, it's the square has good and bad parts to it.
Oh, I
The
thought squares are all hard. I mean, I guess good things about squares is it teaches you in the long run and makes you.
Yeah, the real thing about squares, well, you're right. I mean, they cause problems, et cetera. So, like,
Mhm.
say you're a Gemini, as you are, and your marriage planet is Jupiter, and say you have Mars square Jupiter, well, then we'd say, well, you won't find a good marriage partner in your Mars area, which is your social group. So
Mhm.
don't look for a marriage partner or that kind of romance from your social group
Yeah.
because it's square with Mars, see?
Well,
So we can give advice like that. One of the great things about squares is that they focus, right?
mhm.
In other words, there's nothing more definite than a square. If you want to find out what's really going on with something, look for the square of it. Um, but yeah, I don't know if you've heard of Bobby Fischer, the chess champion. Uh,
Yes. Yeah.
he, yeah, he was eccentric and he had lots of temper tantrums and stuff, but he was filled with squares. He had what's
Oh.
called a grand cross. Grand cross is where you have a
Mhm.
square to a square to a square to a square, four planets all squaring each other.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah, it does energize you. It can make people hard to. It can make your life tough.
Mhm.
A lot of squares. Because, like I said, if your Jupiter and Mars are square and you were a Gemini, you couldn't find romance in one specific area. You could find it in others, right?
Mhm.
Or premarital love. If you have a lot of squares, it means a lot of things are blocked. Don't do this or that doesn't work. But also, the square can energize you to overcome a situation. You see, like I have Moon Square Mars, which is a short temper
Mhm.
and aggressive in a sense. And so that sort of helps me. I'm not a, I'm not easy to take advantage of because I lose my temper. You see, so it's got a good side too, right?
Okay.
Yeah, it gives you the energy, you might say, to fight a certain battle.
Mhm.
But the square never goes away. Even when you're 80, you'll be losing your temper, or something if it's Moon Mars, right?
Would you say people who have more squares in their chart have kind of a more wiser soul, or I don't know from your experience at meetings, like
No,
reading people's charts?
I think if you walked into a room of say 5 people,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them had a whole bunch of squares, and they weren't all just on the best behavior, just everybody was
Yeah.
tight with everybody else, you'd be able to pick out the person with all the squares.
Okay.
They would be the most energized, dynamic, not
Really?
agreeing with anyone. They would be a little ball of fury all on their own,
Okay.
right? If they had lots of squares, like Bobby Fischer, the chess champion. He just nobody could get along with him, and yet he was the chess champion.
So you
So
don't you don't condemn, you don't think that people with squares are condemned. Like it's not like they have it
no,
worse
but
than other people.
well, they probably do in some ways. But they also have uh, squares often go along with genius, you know, because it makes you think and react. It makes you see things very
Mm-hmm.
clearly.
Okay.
If your chart is full of trines, you go through life all harmoniously and da 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 da. But if you are full of squares, you get punched in the nose at the age of 5 or something. So it
Yeah.
makes you see something really clearly. If I do that, somebody will punch me in the nose.
I
You know,
guess
it
that's
just,
what I meant by like a wiser soul, because they go through those challenging experiences. It kind of makes them
yeah, it's
more
enlightening. Yeah,
experienced.
you could be wiser from them,
Hmm.
or you could just spend your life fighting.
Okay.
It just depends how you rise. Do you rise above it or not? And that really depends on what you've got in the ninth and things like that.
So I guess that brings me to, I guess, a more specific question related to that is, if have you ever met people with like impossible charts that found a way in their life?
I'm not sure what you mean by impossible charts, but it doesn't sound right. I've never had a client who has no options.
Good, good. Yeah.
I have met clients who refuse their options, and
Mm,
there are clients who obsess on their problems and won't get over them. They
mm-hmm.
refuse to get over them. You know, like
But
I'll say,
that's positive. Yeah.
yeah, like I say I'll have a client who um, is destined to have no success in marriage. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll say to them, well, you know, you can have beautiful love affairs, or you can have these lovely friendships, etc. But they're saying, no, no, I've only been divorced 5 times. I'm determined to be married. You know, and they'll
Mm,
go out and plug away at the same thing. And I just go, okay, you know,
yeah. And I wonder sometimes if people do have those kinds of restrictions, if their life, I mean, that was going to lead me to another question about if you think there's definitely a focus in some people's charts, and where it doesn't allow them to really focus on other parts of their life. Like there's some people where they can have it all. They can have the career, they can have the success in marriage and so on. And then there's people with more restrictions. So would you say that there are charts where it would help them maybe to focus more on what they're meant, like their purpose, versus versus forcing something that's just not in their destiny?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably the biggest task of an astrologer and the
Right.
hardest one because a lot of people don't want to change. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
They want to
That's
hear, contemplate. I think what I do with a client, if it's somebody like that who just won't change, I think I just keep telling them, I was just saying, well, I'm going to put a bug in your ear, okay? You know, and I just hope that they'll go away and in the month or 3 or 4 to come, they'll think about that and think, oh, maybe I should look at this or try that, you know.
hmm.
It's
Yeah.
hard though, you know. People, in a sense, sometimes you're kind of asking people to change their life, and that's hard, you know.
Well, especially if they have certain values and
Well,
passions in their heart that's like
yeah,
innate within them. It's hard to say to somebody, you can't have that.
yeah. Well, also, I have like I do astrocartography. It shows where's a good place to live in the world,
Mhm,
and I'll have people come in and you know everything is going wrong. Everything's gone wrong for the last 30 years or something. And I'll
mhm.
look at it and I'll say, you're living on your Saturn line. This is the worst place to be. I'll say, as long as you stay here, you'll just have problem after problem after problem. Move to Montreal or wherever they have a success line, a love line or
Wow.
whatever. And they say, oh, thank you very much. And they leave, but they'll never go there because where their Saturn line is, they've been here so long, they have children, they have family. They don't, you know, it's a big thing to leave your family and go 2,000 miles away to start a new life, you know?
So you are a big believer, like when you say Saturn line, you do believe that there's certain countries or places that are meant that would be better for a person.
Yes, but it's specific to
Wow.
every single person.
Wow.
Uh,
So
like
when you,
my,
mhm.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, for instance, my Jupiter marriage line, you know, good marriage line might go down through Moscow. Yours might go down through Charlotte, Prince Edward Island. you know,
Wow.
it's different for every person. Right?
Are most astrologers good at being able to say that, or is that just something you specialize in? Because I've never even heard of that.
Oh, it's called Astrocartography.
Okay.
It's not specialized. It actually, you could have done it back in the Middle Ages, et cetera, but it takes so many calculations
Okay.
that really it never became a thing. It never became a method really that was used until about the 60s or 70s. And
Oh.
a fellow called Jim Lewis popularized it, and would give you a computer printout of your map and that sort of
Eh,
thing.
It's actually incredible because when you told me mine, I was blown away because I would say to family and friends, like, I don't know why, but I'm drawn to that area and I get along with those people. And I
Mhm.
didn't, you don't even know me and you mentioned that country right away. So I was going to ask you about that. How do you know that? So that's actually called something, astro something,
Astrocartography. Yeah.
cartography.
Yeah.
Okay.
Carto means map, right?
Oh,
The earliest
cartography.
maps were called carts,
Yeah.
Cartes. It
Okay.
just means astrology and map.
Wow. That's
And
mind blowing.
yeah, I would think a lot of astrologers would use it. I don't really know if they do or not. I do.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever had an astrologer say that to me. So this is mind blowing.
To do all the maps, I do 7 or 8 maps, and to do them all, takes 15, 20 minutes on the computer. And then you have to mail
Oh,
it and the whole bit. For
okay.
$35 is not worth it, but I do it. But
Okay,
I do it for every client that I have. Half
I
hour, hour
because you
long.
told me within like a second of looking. So you're saying it
Yeah,
requires more to be more detailed?
yeah. That when I told you that was not astrophotography.
Oh, so how
That was
did
the
you know
fact
that?
because you had a planet in that country's
Oh,
um, and that country's sun. So I knew that there would
wow.
be a good thing between you.
That's so what is that called? How do you differentiate between the two?
Well, astrocartography is moving your rising sign, your ascendant, which is
Hmm.
a point in your rising sign. It goes entirely around the Earth every 24 hours because the Earth
Hmm.
revolves, right?
Yeah.
So when it's like 8 hours over, well, gee, then my Venus is rising and I'm liked by everyone, sort of thing. There's my
Oh,
Saturn rising, I'm just going to be in trouble or something. But that's astrocartography. But what I was doing with you and that country the other time was simply you had mentioned something. I just knew that degree. I just happened to know that degree.
wow.
So I
Wow.
just made the link quickly.
If there was an accident or life-changing event that happened to someone, like for example, I heard of someone who injured their frontal lobe, which can change your personality, things like
Mhm.
that. Does it deter that person from the path that their chart shows? Like, can you just be
Um,
completely injured that your chart no longer applies?
uh, Theoretically, no.
Mhm.
Theoretically, you only get what's in your chart and you never get what's not in your chart.
Mhm.
So if this person was, say, in an accident, became quadriplegic, there would be an indication of that in their chart. So,
Wow.
um,
So
but
whatever does happen, even if it's a personality change, the chart will inevitably
yeah,
guide their
it should.
persona.
I don't know if it'll guide, but it should show that that's where they're going. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
It's just like you can see schizophrenia in a chart and things like
Yeah.
that.
Have you ever seen someone who has been in an accident where their life just kind of took a different
Yeah, I
turn?
had a client. It wasn't that long ago, maybe July, August, who had been in a major accident. Um, for some reason, he's more concerned with his mother than himself. But
Wow.
yeah, I had a client like that. But what I was doing in that case, or what the good I could do him, wasn't a lot. But yeah, I could suggest certain areas to focus on with therapy and things like that. There was not a lot I could do.
Hmm.
Um, he was doing. Sorry, I've lost the video. Oh, there it goes. Um, he was I don't want to get too specific here, but
Mhm.
he was, wondering if he should quit his job because of the accident and the
Mhm.
disability and stuff like that. So I was just looking at that and telling him, when it would be favorable to quit if he wanted to, he'd get a better package or this and
Mhm.
that. So
But
I was
you
giving advice mostly on timing.
but you could see that that was happening in his life and
Yeah, especially in hindsight.
okay.
If somebody dies, you're going, oh yeah, there it was. Or somebody has an
Yeah.
accident, oh yeah,
Yeah.
there it was. Um, and But usually, the thing is, an accident like that, you can look at a chart on ever deepening levels, right? And
Mhm.
I don't really go down much to the deep levels,
Mhm.
mainly because it takes more time and the clients, it's a lot of clients don't want that anyway. But um, I'm sorry, losing my train here. But you, the kind of aspects that will cause, say, a car accident.
Mhm.
Okay? The simplest accident is Moon square Mars or Moon Uranus Mars square each other, but that occurs every couple of years.
Mhm.
So when is the accident? You see,
Right.
um, so I mean, if you have a huge bunch of stuff like four planets all squaring
Mhm.
each other, and there's Mars and Uranus involved, and Pluto, and all these bad planets and stuff. Um, you can say the likelihood of an accident then is very high. And the old days, they would use astrology to say, don't drive on that day. Don't,
Yeah.
be careful around that time. And I do say things like that. But I can't specifically say you're going to have an accident on that day or week versus some other time, day or week, because the the aspects, I don't like to talk to them as forces, but I
Mhm.
do just grammatically. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, the aspects that have the force to cause a life-threatening accident occur in most people's charts at least 20 times, maybe 15, 20
Wow.
times over their lifetime.
Wow.
So to actually say when the accident is, they have to delve a lot deeper. You have to get in their part of death and their part of this, and et cetera, et cetera. And you have to
So
look at degrees and et cetera. So
are
after
you
10 hours, you might.
are you able to like go from where he's at and say, you know, this is when you'll start feeling better, or this is when things will
Yeah,
start taking a better turn and give him
yeah,
like some
yeah,
hope? Yeah.
yeah. I do that a lot. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I think I sort of explained last interview is
Yeah, we
if
went
you,
over that a little bit.
yeah, if somebody has an illness, say, if you can determine when it started, then you can often determine when it will end.
How can someone, or is it possible for someone to settle into their chart if their chart leads to chaos every few years? That's kind of an odd question, but
Well, that's sort of like saying, is it possible for somebody who's addicted to chaos to find calmness, right? Because
yeah,
they're sharp,
or at
they're
least,
sharp.
or not calmness, but at least balance. Is it possible to actually improve and get joy out of life, even if there's chaos every few years? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I see what you mean. One reader who's every once in a while is a client, but not often, has this little thing at the bottom of her email that says, when life is full of ups and downs and surprises and catastrophes and etc., the mature thing isn't to regret it. If life is like a stormy sea, the
Mhm.
mature thing is to learn how to sail,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of it is, do you say you have say you had a terrible childhood and you have a life of chaos.
Mhm.
Do you can accept the chaos and just say, well, that's life. That's the way I am. You can try and overcome or fight the chaos, or you can actually use the chaos. Okay, so accepting it is pretty good. Fighting it, I don't think really works because it's just return, return, return. Using it can be good. Like
What's an
chaos can be,
example of using it?
well, you know how that phrase they brought up 10 years ago, thinking outside the box. chaotic people think outside the box all the time. So chaotic people tend to have strong, creative, inventive qualities. And so they're using the chaos. Or somebody might say, okay, I'm chaotic. I'm going to go join the Marines and shoot up a bunch of people. That's using
Mm,
the way. Um, you know, Embracing chaos, because chaos is energy, right?
mhm.
Chaos is, you might say, misdirected or chaotic energy, but it's certainly energy,
Right.
uh, and it can spur people to do a lot of good things. It can also spur them to do a lot of bad things. That you've seen the news probably, that Waukesha County, the black man who drove over 67 people
I
in the Christmas
didn't hear
parade.
that.
Oh, he he got his SUV and drove through a Christmas parade and killed and maimed 67 people. Uh,
This happened recently?
oh yeah, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. But that fellow was, in a sense, using chaos.
Hmm.
Even in the weeks before that, he ran over his wife. He shot at his nephew. He was in and out of the court system. He was chaotic. You know, so he was using chaos in a bad
Wow.
way.
Wow.
Right?
Have you ever had to suggest, just like, did you give a suggestion to someone how to use it in a positive way when you saw it in their chart?
I don't really look for chaos.
Hmm.
I look for more specific things like, will I ever find love, or money things,
Yeah.
or, things like that. I mean, you can, you can tell that a person's chaotic more quickly just from the first 10 minutes of meeting them, or even a minute, than you can from the chart. But a chaotic person is likely to have a lot of squares and things like that.
Hmm. Okay. Well,
A lot of conflicting emotions, basically.
yeah, I mean, it depends what's going on currently. Sometimes you can see it and sometimes you can't if they're in a period of rest. So,
Yeah. I had a woman who was not, she was a friend, not a client, but her parents had been divorced.
mhm.
She married a lawyer and he left her at some point. And for her, this was just chaos. Her love life was chaos, um, or her married life was anyway. And she never did find happiness in a way. She's probably passed on now. She was a lot older. But,
And
you know,
so you were saying that because of her squares, she didn't? I just missed that last
um,
part. So you
oh,
were saying
sorry. No,
why didn't she find
oh,
love?
I was just saying that often chaos comes from your upbringing,
Hmm.
or and as your parents are, you tend to choose your mate. And if
Hmm.
your parents constantly argue, you tend to choose a mate who's going to constantly argue with you.
Hmm.
If your parents are harmonious and loving, you tend to pick a harmonious, loving mate. And it's so subconscious. It's that person who had the divorced parents or the fighting parents could say, I am never going to fight in my marriage. I'm going to make sure I marry somebody who's sweet and gentle and mellow. And maybe they do, and that works for the first year, and then they're both fighting. So
Wow.
subconsciously they pick the person that will reproduce what was in their childhood, which
And
is
I've
a
also
shame.
seen the opposite where people
Yeah.
marry the complete opposite of what they grew up with.
Yeah. You also see, for instance, single parents whose children turn out beautifully,
Yeah.
which it's rare, but it happens.
Hmm.
A lot of it's the person's, you know, um, a lot of it is a sun sign too. If you have a terrible childhood, etc., but you're a Taurus, you still tend to be a good parent because you're still quiet and calm and slow.
Hmm.
If you're a Gemini who had a terrible childhood, you'd be zip zap zap all over the place, you know, and
Yeah,
confusing your kids. So
of
I think there'd
course.
be good sides to it too. By the age of 7, I'd probably lived in about 10 or 15 different towns or cities.
Oh, wow.
My parents broke up. I lived mostly at the back of a car, really. I had a really
Wow.
chaotic childhood. But I think that gave me a lot of, I think that promoted the psychic or the intuitive in me, you know? So,
Wow.
so things have their gift too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every problem has a gift in a sense.
I definitely see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it makes me feel like you never know what someone went through, but it's definitely brings more compassion and
Hmm.
empathy to that person,
Hmm.
which to me makes the difference between, you know, a really self-aware human versus
Hmm.
unaware. And you're able to really connect with those people more
Yeah.
than the ones who don't have that empathy.
Yeah. Ultimately, we should not be condemning anyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Murderers, rapists, whatever. We still should be loving them and embracing them because they've come from some horror themselves, you know?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
I actually, I'm so passionate about this topic about prisons, for example,
mm,
because I feel like that and mental institutions, I feel like as as humanity, as a society, we try to create these like ways to
mhm,
manage life,
yeah,
but
put
but
people
it's
away.
yeah, but it's I feel like it's not right. There's something not right about it because
Well, mental institutions, by and large, have been abolished since about the 70s, 80s. In BC, there aren't any. You know, there are
really,
psychiatric
so
wards in
okay,
hospitals,
psychiatric wards,
but
that's what.
they're temporary, and then they watch out in the street again and back.
Ah,
Prisons, you know, I think the best thing they could do in the states and the prisons is have courses, therapists, whatever, but something to teach these guys all the how to be fathers and all the benefits of being a father and all the love they would get in return in that. If you could turn, you know, say you had 1,000 prisoners, but if you could turn 1,000 prisoners, if you could turn 500 of them into fathers, real fathers, your prison populations would probably go way down. Crimes would go way down because
mhm.
fathers don't create crimes unless it's, you know, urgent, like they got to feed their kid or something.
Yeah, and
But
even if it's if that's not the issue, whatever it is, if they had some kind of life coaching, but I think they do they? Don't they? Like they,
I don't know.
I don't
I
know,
don't really know.
but
I haven't been in prison for a long time.
oh, that would be interesting if you had like a prison day and you went and did charts for them.
So,
This is the day you're gonna get out.
yeah.
Oh,
No,
yeah,
I
I
taught creative writing prison once, but
you did, eh?
yeah, it wasn't
I,
that good.
it just it makes me feel like I life is hard to register when you know that there are people in jail that shouldn't be there. That's
Mhm.
why I get like passionate about it.
Yeah. I'm wondering where your moon was, what sign your moon was in.
Sag.
That's Sag. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's Sag has a lot to do with justice and
Yeah.
law and stuff like that.
Hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Social warriors, those are Sages.
Social warriors.
Yeah.
Warriors. Oh, like social welfare and things like that.
Well, like, yeah, like, let's get rid of the prisons or let's reform the laws or something. And that's
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
yeah. The
I
only in the States, they're doing uh, this big inquiry into the resurrection, the insurrection of back in January when Trump's people stormed the White House and all that, or the storm of Congress. And the only person they subpoenaed who's refused to appear and has gone to court instead is a Sagittarian. So,
ah.
but you know that's Sagittarius in a sense, yeah.
It is
But,
the wise sign of the zodiac, so to speak, right?
yeah, I call it the sages.
The
That's
sage,
just because
yeah.
if I said sag, it'd be an insult. In Sagittarius, it's too long to write. So,
Sag. Um, I was gonna ask about, can you tell right away something about someone?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
yeah.
You can tell lots of things right away. They're
Yeah.
not necessarily the most valuable things, but sure. Now,
Uh,
if you see somebody's got sun trine moon when they're born, you say, oh, they liked playing. In fact, they're very
mhm.
comfortable playing by themselves, et cetera, et cetera. You know, you can, they got the moon in the 10th. You can say, oh, you're ambitious, always being ambitious, you know.
Yeah. I guess I meant like even blind spots or people's focus in a chart, like their life is meant for work. Like, can you see that right off the bat, or you have to delve into the chart to see
Oh,
those?
no, say somebody has 4 planets in the work house, in the
Mm-hmm.
6th, and the moon in the 10th or whatever. This is a
Mm-hmm.
worker. Here's somebody who's cut out to
Right,
be
right.
an ambitious worker.
Yeah.
If they have all that stuff in the work house, but nothing in the 10th, there you go, here's just a worker.
When
Not
when do
ambitious, but hard
when
worker.
when do you get kind of like taken aback when you first see a chart? Like, did you ever have an experience where you felt like, oh wow, this is going to be interesting to read, or
Uh, no, not really.
is
I've had
it's
the opposite. I've had, oh my God, this can be hard. I've had that.
yeah, yeah. I'm curious what that chart was.
I don't know, but the odd thing is that the charts, sometimes, you know, you just read and you're mellow and everything's good, or you're reading, you're hitting the points and you're going, oh yeah, and you feel great, you know. Or sometimes they're not saying a word and I'm struggling through
Mm,
it. But
yeah.
sometimes I feel uptight and I feel like I'm not doing a good job and I'm
Mm.
struggling to get anything out and stuff. And oddly enough, those are some of the people that come back and said, wow, that was such a good reading.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know, but to me, it was, I just sweated through. I couldn't, you know, I just
Yeah.
couldn't be comfortable with it.
Yeah,
Who
I
knows?
know. I know sometimes you can never tell what someone is actually thinking just from their
And also, sometimes you feel like, oh, I'm really intuitive today and blah, blah, blah. You're just fooling yourself. You're just feeling
yeah.
good, you
Yeah.
know? So,
um do you think blind spots can be seen through Saturn or
oh, yeah, blind spots. I never think of them as that, but
mhm.
um, there are 12 signs, okay?
Yeah.
And sun and moon and 8 planets. So at least 2 signs have to be empty,
Yeah.
right? Have nothing in them. Most people have 3, 4 empty.
Yeah.
Well, those in a sense are blind spots in a
Okay.
way. They're places that, like say it's your 8th house, and the 8th is um, fooling around sexually, financial investments, debt, that sort of thing, heavy money stuff,
Hmm.
spying and stuff like that. Somebody who has nothing there, it's not exactly a blind spot, but it's something that just doesn't draw them. They're
Yeah.
just not drawn to that area. Whereas if I have a client and they have 2 planets or the moon or whatever in the 8th, I go, oh, these are not loyal people. Like when I do relationship comparisons,
Hmm.
and I'm doing it for Molly and George, who's not there, but Molly is, and George has a couple planets in the 8th. I
Hmm.
say to her, this guy will not be faithful. In fact, I
Wow.
usually try and impress them as I say, did this guy, was he connected to somebody else when you met him? And I go, yeah,
Mm.
that's your indication he won't be faithful. So, you know, that could be their
Wow.
blind spot because they have nothing there. Right?
I guess that's definitely a blind spot, but I also mean blind spots like where we're blind to ourselves, like our own
Mm.
um inability to see through
Their
things
self. Yeah.
that block us in our own path.
Yeah.
Can you see things
Um,
like that?
you're kind of getting into an area that's familiar to humanistic astrologers, which
Hmm.
I'm not.
Hmm.
Um, I don't really study, you know, to see where somebody's blind.
That's okay.
I mean, I can say, you know, here's a potential problem or potential success, And
Mm-hmm.
they might say, I've never thought of that. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
say, well, you should, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, People are often blind to their best opportunities or their best, um, what do you call it, skills.
Yeah.
People often, in fact, there's a degree in the zodiac. It's in Leo, but I won't say which, um, where the person continually tries to succeed in all different areas and never realizes that they have a real skill with math.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a blind spot, I guess, in a way.
That is too. I'm also thinking like you meet people sometimes and they're
Mm.
great people, but then they have this thing where they're not even aware that they're hurtful to other
Right.
people, or
Yeah, yeah,
you are the type of person that comes off very cold, but
yeah,
that's not really you on the inside. Like
yeah.
things like that, I guess you'd be able to see.
You can to a certain degree. What you're getting into now is personality disorders.
Okay.
People with personality disorders. Those are people who keep screwing up but won't change it.
Hmm.
But arrogant people, for instance, are often just shy, and the aloofness and the arrogance is, because they're they're shy or scared of being too personal or too intimate. You
Hmm.
know,
That's a
so
great way of
often
looking
a
at it.
person is the flip side of what they're doing.
Very, very
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah, I like that. Sometimes someone is very, very
But
arrogant and like
yeah,
narcissism. I was going to ask you about that a little later.
yeah, narcissism. Yeah, if you
Um,
run into something like somebody's narcissistic or
mhm.
keeps undercutting you or whatever, right? Keeps doing something that's negative. To me, the best thing you can do is to confront them with it and say, you're always doing this behavior. I don't like it. Can you change it? And they might say yes and then fail to change it. They might
Mhm.
try to change it and still
Mhm.
fail, but at least there's hope and
Yeah.
they're worth a second chance. Or they might just say, you're stupid. Bug off. I'll live like I want to. The best choice for you then is just never to associate with them.
Are you able to help people with that kind of, like, have you ever met, I don't know, narcissism, addictions, over sexualization? Can
I do.
you,
I do have clients who have addictions.
can you help balance
Narcissistic
those?
clients don't tend to go to astrologers. Can I help them? Um, to a certain degree, I can tell them. I'm not a therapist. You
Mhm.
know, and I'm not there to change. I can't physically change their life, but I can tell them. You can reduce this. For instance, say he's got plants in the eighth and he keeps fooling around with married women. I can say, well, you can get away from this, a little bit of self-discipline, and get yourself interested in research, spying, heavy finance, investments,
Yeah.
etc., surgery, doctors. If you get in that, it takes up the same energy. And so you can really cut down, say, your pornography addiction by getting into these other areas. And it works to a degree, but not fully. Like I might say to somebody, this is just a stupid example, but say I said somebody's young, they say, well, I've got a pornography addiction and I keep chasing married women. And I'm in university and I say, what are you in science? Okay, become a doctor, become a surgeon, and that will take away a lot of that. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so they will become a doctor. This is just,
Yeah. Yeah.
a fantasy
Hmm.
version,
Hmm.
but they will then become the medical doctor and do the surgery, et cetera, et cetera. And instead of chasing two or three married women a year, they might chase one every 2 or 3 years. You
Hmm.
see what I mean? In
Yeah.
other words, it doesn't automatically eradicate the difficult part. It
Yeah.
just may reduce it. But
Yeah.
really, it's up to them. It's a lot to do with self-discipline
Hmm.
or determination. You know.
Speaking of people's potential,
Hmm.
um, if someone isn't living their highest potential, is that like, can you look at a
That's
chart?
very common. That's very common.
So is it possible that some people are not meant to, or everyone can, they just have to get over hurdles?
Yeah, they just have to believe in themselves and take that chance. You know, people that don't live up to their full potential usually are protecting themselves, saying, well, this life is good, it's good enough, I'm happy enough, I don't want to upset the apple cart. So I'm not going to go to law school and be a lawyer. I'm going to stay, you know, a clerk or something.
Yeah.
And I'm happy as a clerk, and I've got a wife who's accepted me as a clerk, and said, why should I be a lawyer? And I say, well, to make $500 or $800 an hour, you know. But a lot of people at that point will just go, oh yeah, well, you know.
Or even someone who has, like, you could probably just tell from their chart that their path is a very spiritual one. I guess there are people who have those kinds of charts, and then there's people who lack that kind of spiritual
Yeah,
aspect.
that's true. Yeah.
So
Well, let me put it this way. We're all psychic. You're as psychic as I am, and I'm as psychic as George next door. We're all psychic, but do we recognize it and do we use it? Right. And some people, when you see a spiritual chart, it means basically that here's somebody who can wake up to their psychic abilities more easily than most other people. Okay. But there are definitely indicators that somebody's got Neptune on the ascendant, or you know, moon trine Neptune. So these people, Pisces emphasize, etc. These people all have very strong intuitions. You know, intuition up to being totally psychic. If somebody has Neptune square Saturn, we know that they won't be psychic, they'll be schizophrenic. You know, it's a different kind of thing.
Yeah.
But if somebody has, say they're, say Neptune is squared by Mars, they may have all sorts of little psychic episodes, and half of them will be right and half of them will be wrong, and it will be impossible for them to tell which is which. So, but you definitely can see spiritual charts. But people who have those kind of charts, I would say maybe 1 in 10 are actually on a spiritual path. The other 9 are just, you know, they just flow through their life. They've got good intuition, but they don't particularly use it or pursue it or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
There's kind of the difference between, no, I don't know if they still are, but when I was young, lots of older women read tea leaves or did cards at home or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 1 in 10 women. You don't see that so much anymore. But I would say those are women who have high psychic awareness, but I've just decided, well, you know, I'm going to do it at my kitchen table. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm not going to try and make money or whatever from it.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of indigo children?
No, indigo?
Indigo or crystal
Were they
children?
born in a bookstore?
No. Like kids who are especially smart and aware for their age, and almost like they're an old soul. And I don't know if you've ever read like children's charts, but
Yeah, every once in a while I do. Or a parent will want me to, you know, do an email reading for their
oh yeah.
10-month-old baby, so they'll keep it over the years. That
Have
sort of
you
thing.
ever come across children with high levels of intelligence? Like, were you able to tell that someone is a very I don't want to use the word
In the chart, yeah.
special,
Not,
but like of high
yeah. The chart
attunement,
does, yeah,
like a genius,
yeah, yeah.
like Einstein. I don't know if you've ever looked at
Yeah.
Einstein's
In the
chart,
chart,
but
yeah.
would he have like something in his chart that would show his genius?
In a sense, it would put him probably in the, you know, in the river. But there's, you know, 10,000 other people in that river. Why did he stand out? That
Yeah.
part, you would have to really, really go into his chart, all his parts, et cetera, et cetera. He didn't, I mean, they guess they place his IQ around 150. there are lots of people with under 50 IQs, 1 in
Yeah.
20,000 people.
So it's not something
So
that stands out in a chart that you could tell the difference between a chart like Einstein and an ordinary person's chart.
no, not that I know of.
Hmm.
But I'm not a research astrologer, so I haven't tried to,
Yeah.
haven't spent a year trying to find out the differences there.
Yeah.
Um, I suspect, I mean, remember at the very moment Einstein was born, so were probably 1,000 other children, the
Hmm.
very second, right?
Yeah.
Of 2 or 3 billion people, so why aren't they all Einsteins? If you go deep and deep and deep, they might have been born the same second, but 100 miles away. So the ascendant is 1 degree different, or,
Hmm.
and that can cause all the Arabic parts to be different, et cetera, et cetera. I remember last time I said, astrology is 100%, but astrologers are only about 60 to 80.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Sometimes it's hard to really depict those.
also it'd be easy to look back and analyze Einstein's chart and say, there's how he's a genius and there's why he was and all this. But to look forward before somebody accomplishes something, that's a different thing,
Okay, that's fair. Do you think I was going to ask you about if palm reading, numerology, like, do you think it can go hand in hand? Do you think it does go hand in hand with astrology, or do you think,
Yeah, I think they basically do
yeah.
the same thing.
Hmm.
I used to, when my pre-COVID, before COVID, I used to do readings in person.
Hmm.
And I always started with a tarot reading.
Oh, you
Sometimes an
did?
hour, yeah,
Oh, I didn't know
sometimes an
you
hour
do that.
reading. Yeah, sometimes the whole half hour of it would be taken up with the cards.
Oh, I had no idea you do that. Do you do other things or?
I can't read palms. I've never been able to learn that. I don't know why. But tarot, you can do anything. You can read a book,
Yeah,
for,
I know what you mean, but I guess some people really do have a knack for it. So I didn't
mm,
know that you used to use that.
oh yeah, yeah. I think I had to brag, but I think I was fairly good.
You got it. You got a lot of accurate
The
insight.
frustrating thing is when the tower shows one thing, the chart shows something else. And then you go,
Oh.
which is right? And often they both are things. It's often a mistake to say it has to be this or this. It's
Hmm.
often this and this
Hmm.
because people are complicated, you know.
Because I remember someone did a combo of palm, numerology, and astrology.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't.
I do numerology too, actually. Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm not an
I
expert in
love
it.
numerology. Yeah, I'm an amateur too, but I love what it says about like master souls
Mm.
and things like
Oh, the
that.
11, 22, 33,
Yeah,
and all that.
I really do feel like when I meet those people, I know that they're master souls right
There-
away.
There's an excellent book, numerological book. It's called The Divine Triangle. I
Okay.
was just wondering if I can. The authors are Faith Javane, Javane, but I don't know if I actually can find their. Oh yeah, and Dusty Bunker, Bunker. This is very old. I don't know if it's still in print, but usually Amazon can find all sorts of things that are
And
out of print.
that's a really good one on
It's
numerology.
the best one I've ever seen.
Okay, I'll
Um,
take a look at that.
I was looking for the publisher, but I'm missing pages, so I can't find the publisher. But it's called The Divine Triangle. It's the best numerological book I've ever read.
And I guess you can take someone's life path or whatever number
Yeah,
in their birth date
yeah.
at
You
some
can take
point.
their birth date or their name or the combination of both,
Mm-hmm.
etc. I don't get into it that deeply.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of go, oh, you're born January 1, 1990. Okay, so you're a 10 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So I look up the 10. Oh, yeah, okay, that's
Mm-hmm.
it's saying to you. But you will, numerology will only describe a kind of narrow band.
Yeah.
Okay, That's what I find lacking. Like I wouldn't want to be a numerologist all the
Mhm.
time, you know.
Yeah, I think it probably helps if you combine that with something else.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The chart, when you get deeply into astrology, you start to see that there's numerology operating in it, in just
Mm.
the sign of the charts and everything. Yeah.
Like,
Well,
what
there's a.
is there an example of
uh,
that? Like,
I'm trying to think of one. But there's a reason there are 12 signs. You
is there?
know, yeah.
What's that?
Well, I think the 12 goes right back into the Bible. Or you might say more correctly, the Bible came out of the 12. The
Mm.
12 signs, I think, started occurring around Egyptian times when the pharaohs were you know, they first started thinking of signs. I don't think they were developed, but by the time Ezekiel came out in the Old Testament, the 12 signs were totally developed. And in fact, he has this vision where he goes to heaven and sees God and everything. The entire thing is astrological. God is surrounded by 12,
Oh my gosh.
these 12 guys who are obviously representative of the 12 signs, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
That's a bit of history. It's not an example.
Yeah, it's very
Uh,
interesting though.
yeah. Well, here's a real simple example. The number 4 in numerology means the end and the beginning. It's the home. It's the security. It's the base. Number 4 is the base,
Yeah.
right? In astrology, the 4th house is the house
Mhm.
of the mother, the home,
The home.
the
Yeah.
security, what you stand on, your base or platform.
Hmm.
In numerology, I think it's more like a stop-start thing. But I don't know numerology well enough, you know.
Okay.
Um,
But yeah,
but
that's very interesting about you saying that it goes back to the Bible.
yeah,
Is there
Q4.
any more you can tell me about that? Because I find that
Well,
interesting.
in
Related
in
to
this
the
Faith
Bible.
Devane book, number 4 is the emperor. So the conquering of land, I guess. Sorry, about the Old Testament.
Yeah, I
Well,
just that resonated with me.
yeah, there are like in Isaiah, who's a prophet in the Old Testament. He makes fun of astrologers. He says, "Oh yeah, you know, what are you going to do? Tell your astrologers that you're going to win or something like this." And he just, makes fun of them. Um, but then Ezekiel goes to heaven and he doesn't say anything about astrology, but he says there are 2 wheels, one wheel within another. That's your solar chart and your ascending chart, right? Or your chart and the transit chart. There's these wheels within wheels, and he's describing these 4 animals, which is the bull and the human and the what do you call those things? The eagle and whatever. Those are the four triplicities. Like the eagle is Scorpio, Taurus, Leo, and
Oh, the
Aquarius.
4 elements.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like that. It's amazingly astrological, um,
Wow.
but nobody ever brings that up or sees that, I guess. And then the Magi and the Christ birth are supposedly astrologers. Who else would see a star and know where to go, on earth to find this savior, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying there was a Christ or was a savior or anything. I'm just saying the myth or the Bible, uh, that's astrological. What else could it be? You know?
Have you ever seen charts where you feel like someone has
Oh, there are
kind of
messianic
Jesus?
charts.
Yeah. Oh, there are.
Yeah, it doesn't mean they're good
Oh,
or they're
okay.
true messiahs, but there are messianic degrees.
Hmm.
I can't remember. I think it's 11 Libra. Anyway, so there are a couple of degrees that are messianic that people prophecy, etc. Um,
Wow.
Now you get a guy with a messianic degree in prison, and he's the guy
Mm.
who says, "We are all this way," and blah blah blah,
Mm.
right? Or something like that.
Yeah.
But messianic. He basically has followers and he makes predictions and etc.
Hmm. Okay. Interesting. I could talk to you about this stuff forever. Um, when you look at Venus in people's charts, I know that you have to look at everything else to see how it all works, but
placement, just where it is.
Yeah, just the placement.
Yeah.
But I remember reading into that, and it explained a lot, because
Mm.
I didn't understand why so many people were able to detach quickly.
For Gemini, Venus is always either in Taurus, Gemini, or Cancer.
Oh, I
Well,
didn't
it
I didn't know
it
that.
could get late Aries or early Leo, but generally it's those three signs. Because Venus and Mercury are always around the sun because they're inner planets.
Right. I didn't even think about it that way.
Yeah.
That's so true. I mean, it's just interesting because for a long time in life, like I would notice that people were different, because I didn't understand why it's so easy for people to just move on. And then I realized Venus, Cancer is emotional, and the memories are all emotional associated. And when you have such an attachment to memories because of the emotions, it's so much harder to just be like, oh, that never happened. So I thought maybe you'd have insight on, are you able to tell people with certain placements that, what they can do to alleviate, pain in a breakup?
I have to admit that I'm a little limited. I tend to tell people what is rather than how they can
Yeah.
deal. I do a little bit of how they can deal with it, but
Yeah, that's okay. I'm challenging you.
yeah, that thing, what the only thing I could say about that, the Venus thing, is realize there are, they used to say many fish in the sea. I'm saying realize there are a million social interactions.
Yeah.
And your best idea is not to worry about the ones that didn't work or that seem to be causing anxiety or anything. Go and find the ones that do work.
Yeah.
Go out and go out in the field where it's full of wildflowers. Go out in that field and be in the wildflowers rather than worrying about this one that died in your vase.
One thing I did realize in my lifetime is to keep communication, like when you have anxiety, to make sure that that person is available, so like you're not completely cut off from that person. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But you could tell if someone would have trouble breaking up in a chart. You could tell if
Yeah.
someone
To a certain degree. Yeah.
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 Interesting.
Yeah.
Because some people
Yeah.
just no emotion, they could just be like, see ya. And you can see that
Yeah.
too.
Well,
Like moon in Aquarius, I find they're able to just,
yeah. Aquarius,
or not moon,
Gemini,
Venus maybe in Aquarius, or moon. Yeah.
or Sun, anything in Aquarius.
Yeah, they're able to just let go really fast.
Yeah, Aquarius, Gemini, Aries, Sagittarius. They're the signs that let go easily.
Mhm.
Scorpio, Cancer, etc. They don't let go of that easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just the way it
Oh,
is.
I envy those people so much. Do you
I
have any?
wouldn't, because I think that's mildly psychopathic.
Really?
Yeah, to
Oh, because
just
maybe
walk away
lacking
all the time.
empathy.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right. I guess I envy the stable people like that, because they just don't have to deal with pain.
Well,
So
also, when you lack loyalty, you lack depth.
that's a positive way of looking
Yeah, I wish I was more loyal.
at it. So is
A
that
lot.
something like loyalty in your chart is challenged a little bit?
Um, I think I am quite loyal, except in marriage.
Okay.
I have I have a thing in my chart that, well, in fact, I put a little item in my column today.
You did? I'll
Uh,
read it.
yeah, yeah, it's about
About loyalty.
marriage and destiny. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
yeah, that's hard, because especially being an astrologer who's aware of it, and it's something that's just in you, and it's that, again, discipline. Yeah.
yeah. You're trying to change it, but the thing is, you can do 100 moves to change something, but destiny is still there. It's like saying
Yeah.
you can go down road A, B, C, D, even to Z all the way, but you're still going to end up in the same destination.
Yeah.
Right? All of them I would have a problem with eventually.
Really?
Yeah, because if I married them, because my part of marriage is kind of out the window anyway.
Wow.
It's in the column anyway. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay.
But,
Yeah. See, I'm always curious about other people's life too.
Scorpio.
Yeah. I know
Yeah.
not everybody likes that because not everybody wants to
Eh,
share, but yeah, you'll just have to ignore me when I get like that. For people going through Saturn returns, like I guess that's around 30 and 60, or 27 to 30 years.
58. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you deal a lot with that or?
No, in fact, sometimes the client will leave and I'll go, "Oh my God, they had Saturn return last week. I've seen you see it."
Oh,
Uh, I just seeing what I see, right? But the thing in Saturn returns, you can do a return for Sun, Moon, or any planet. The popular ones are solar returns. Sometimes they get into lunar returns, which cover about 28 days or so. Um, but you can return any planet. You can look at your Jupiter return when it comes back to where it was when you're born. That gives
that's
you
true.
a picture of the next 12 years, your luck in the next 12 years.
Mhm.
Saturn gives you a picture of your practical, excuse me, realities for the next 3 decades.
I can feel Saturn in different transits in my houses. Like I can truly feel when
Yeah.
Saturn is around.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
Um,
I would say Saturn makes it difficult in whatever house it's in. Um,
yeah, it can. Saturn can also be a good planet. Like for you, Saturn is the ruler of investment, not your Gemini, not your Scorpio, right? So when Saturn goes into a good angle, that's a good time to invest.
Hmm.
Like it'll give you a stable, good investment. But you should never ever invest. Geminis should never do anything in the stock market or whatever when the moon's square Saturn, which I did yesterday and regret now.
Oh,
Nah, but I
you
know
didn't
it's
check the transits?
no, I knew it was there, and I thought, but this is the only chance I have. So,
So that's back to your destiny.
yeah. Anyway, but
Do you ever give yourself like kind of like
the spanking.
direction astrologically?
Oh
Spanking.
yeah, yeah. Oh sure. If it's something
Yeah.
big like real estate or
Yeah. You'll
giving
look
a
into.
giving a talk or something like that, yeah, I'll look at it.
Yeah.
Um, and it works. It does work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And you are a Gemini, so just one other thing about marriage is it is probably easy for you to just keep having a new relationship.
uh, I'm getting old. It was a lot easier when I was 20 and 30. But it's not that I like to leave a relationship or I like ending them or anything. I've got Venus in Cancer and Mercury in Cancer, so I hang on. But I get bored easily.
Mm.
So, uh, you know, um,
Usually, again, it's a generalization, but men in Gemini um, do have that kind of innate feeling like of boredom. Like they do need
yeah,
variety, it seems to be. A woman, female
to a certain
Gemini.
degree, they get a bad rap. I
Yeah,
mean,
they do.
there are many the longest lasting marriage in Hollywood. I think it was 60, 70 years. They both died around the age of 100.
Hmm.
Was Bob Hope and his wife. He used to go in World War One, two, or something, go out and entertain the troops and that. He was
Yeah.
actually probably the most famous comic of his time.
Mhm.
But he and his wife, they 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 lived in a house that was I think it was must have been modeled on a flying saucer. It looked just like a huge flying saucer.
Mhm.
But they were faithful to each other to the end. Two Geminis. So and there are a lot of, especially Gemini women tend to be faithful. Gemini men, not
Yeah.
much.
I
Yeah,
find that with women,
yeah,
the Geminis are so different than the males,
yeah, yeah,
than the men. Yeah,
yeah.
very
I
different.
don't know what exactly causes that difference,
Probably
but
testosterone.
probably, yeah.
I
Oh,
always
really?
I
Probably.
always feel like there should be a pill that if someone has too much, they just swallow it and they
Yeah,
reduce their testosterone, or vice versa. If women are too, emotional, they just pop in a
yeah,
testosterone pill.
yeah.
I have these weird ideas sometimes.
I used to have a steady slot for about a year. There's a TV station called CKVU in Vancouver.
Yeah.
I was on for I think, about 15 minutes every Monday. And the guy who ran it kept saying to me, "You should get your own show. Give you half an hour." And I never did it.
Yeah.
I never did it
Why?
because to me it was like not worth it. It was like distracting. It would take up a lot of time.
Really?
And I thought, what's the use? What do I get out of it? I got enough clients.
Social connection.
Nah.
You get enough of that?
No, but you wouldn't get any more from TV actually or radio. The funny thing is on TV and radio, like my column that I wrote, say
Hmm.
back in the 80s,
Hmm.
column that I wrote, I got feedback all the time. I got clients all the time from it. I was on TV.
Really?
I'd get maybe from a 15-minute appearance on TV, I might get one call. They
Mm,
just it just doesn't work the same way.
really?
People, yeah, for some reason I don't know why.
My motivation is that it brings people in a more meaningful way. It brings people together, like in a non-superficial way. Because I find a lot of times people get together and there's a lack
Yeah,
of interaction that elevates the soul. And I feel
yeah,
like sometimes people need those kind of soul connections, or those kinds of connections that
yeah,
like astrological, that can resonate with the person on some
yeah.
level. That
I used to channel for groups of people. I'd go into a trance and channel
Oh,
that.
I didn't know you did that too.
Yeah, in the 90s, did it for
Wow.
2 or 3 years.
So you're
It'd be about,
psychic.
yeah, I guess so. I don't know, but I would go into
Oh,
a trance, and this thing I called Nemo would kind of swim out into the audience, kind of like a fish, and
yeah.
then she would go around. She would pick up somebody, and then she'd start talking to them, and she'd just do that, and people would come and watch and everything.
Yes,
I
that's
found that
fun.
really satisfying.
Why did you
Uh,
stop?
because the South Node went into Taurus, my 12th house, and I thought, no, this is a time to quit this, and I got to go into the
Really?
physical world more. Yeah. And I never really went back. I still will trance and stuff, but I never went back to doing groups.
You do that on an individual level, like for people who come see
Um,
you for a reading,
I,
or?
I, well, at that time I did. I
Okay.
would do that. Um, but
Wow.
uh, I don't know. Some people like that, and then some people like the astrology. Some people say, no,
Yeah.
no, I don't want that stuff. Just give me the
Oh, I would
astrology.
want both.
But yeah, some do. But
Um,
uh,
or
I I didn't do a lot. I was, to tell you the truth, I got a little scared of going crazy,
mm,
of losing
that makes
bearings.
perfect sense. Yeah.
And so I didn't want to do it a lot. Like I'd be walking down the street and there'd be somebody ahead of me, say some guy 40 or something.
Mhm.
And I could see that he was screwed up. There's something wrong with him. I can't remember
Wow.
exactly what, but I thought I could go up to this guy and just put my hand on him and heal him. But it's such a freaky thing to do, and he would
Wow.
think I was crazy, and so I didn't do it. So I had that barrier, that fence that I never could quite cross. You know,
Wow.
I, or I go once. I was in a. I was in a. There's a guy called Donald who's a spiritual healing center in Vancouver. He's kind of the center of it and that. And he was giving this course once or one night, and I went to it, and there's only two other people there. There's three other people. It was very small. And I could
Mhm.
see he was embarrassed, right? Because nobody was showing up. And then my guide, so to speak, Nemo, said, "Don't worry, two people will come." 2 more will come or something. I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to tell them that. A minute later, more people came.
Weird.
So I'm always scared. I always back down, a bit from it because I don't want to be weird, right?
To me, I think it's a gift. Like, I don't think everybody has that. And I think like, I guess people need that. But again, if that's something like you're scared to go crazy, I can totally understand that.
Yeah.
But I would never guess. Like, I thought you're strictly an astrologer. I had no idea you have psychic ability.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, but yeah, I do. I guess. Yeah.
Can I ask you what experience, what might have been the most spiritual experience you've ever had?
Oh, going to heaven or going to the
You
afterlife.
had that experience?
Oh, 3 or 4 times. Yeah. That's why
That's
I said last time. Oh,
fascinating.
don't worry. It's calm and it's nice over there. Don't worry.
Wow.
Yeah. It's, well, I don't know. I can't say, oh, bang, bang, this was heaven, put a sign on it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know that I was, well, one thing, I went up to this thing that sort of seemed like an altar. And then this woman came down in all white robes and stuff and put ropes around me and just drew me up. And then we went in this place that was, you can't really say it was a place. It was like outer space, sort of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are all these little points of light. And when a light came by, it would like go through me and out the other side. And while it was through me in that maybe 2 or 3 seconds, there's not really time, right? But while it was through me, I saw entire worlds and lives and everything. Like I saw like a million consciousnesses, and then it just passed.
Wow.
And then another one comes. And I
Wow.
thought, wow, this is neat. But I also didn't want to stay, or it went away after about half an hour, right? And so I said, Nemo is what I call my guide, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, Nemo, why can't I stay in heaven? And she said, because you don't want to,
Mm.
which was actually
Wait,
the
sorry.
answer.
So you were conscious when this happened, or you were
Oh yeah, I'm always semi-conscious in the trance.
you were
Yeah.
just in a trance? So, but you've never had like a near death. It was never related to a near death experience.
Oh, with the bright light and everything? No,
No.
no.
When did you first find out that you can channel?
It was a terrifying experience. Uh, I went to this spiritual healing center. Um, I thought I'll learn meditation. I don't know why, I just was curious. And so we were meditating the first night, and it's like, you have to empty your mind and get rid of these thoughts and that. And I'm going, oh, trying. And
Mm-hmm.
then the second, I don't know if it was the second or third night, we're meditating, and the guide, or the group leader, um, was doing creative visualization. She would take us on a journey, you go off the earth and through the galaxy or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but I ended up in this mountain, inside the mountain. And there are all sorts of little guys there, little humanoid kind of spirits or
Wow.
dwarfs or something, right? And then suddenly, I was moving through this pure rock, right? And suddenly I went, oh, I got to get out of here. And I panicked because I thought, at a certain point, what if this rock really becomes rock and I'll just be crushed to death, right? And I was terrified. And
Wow.
I just broke the meditation right there. And later I told the leader, I said, not much later, just a few minutes later, everybody came out. I just said, it was so scary, I had to stop and all this. And they
Wow.
told her about it. Excuse me. And she said, in essence, she said, you idiot, you were trancing, you were channeling, you should have stayed there.
Wow.
But after that, she took me to this guy who had a lot of experience in channeling and stuff. And he said, okay, I'm going to give you your guide. And he said, let's meditate. And we meditated, and then everything started going like this, just like chaotic
Oh my
wind.
gosh.
And then I kept hearing this thing, Nima, or something like that. And I thought it was an
Wow.
Eskimo or something. And I couldn't figure it out. And then we got out, and he said, that's your guide. And once I asked her,
Wow.
where are you from, you know? And she said, M64.
What does that mean?
I said, that makes no sense whatsoever. About 3 or 4 years later, I learned that that's how they name stars and galaxies. There's a number like H84 and et cetera. She'd said something like M64. And that's all I know. And then I asked her more about it, you know, later, actually not too long ago.
Oh.
And she said, I said, are you an energy from that? She says, in a way. And that's how she says it. It's like, in a way, or maybe, or something, right?
Yeah.
And she said, in a way. And I said, well, are you like a really, really advanced civilization, et cetera? She said, in a way. And I said, well, are you just spirit or whatever? She said, in a way, you know. And
So it's trying not to give you too much.
well, I don't know if I could really understand any more of that. And then I said, are you in my, are you really a separate entity, or are you my subconscious? She said, yes, I'm both. So who
Huh.
knows, right? So
Huh.
it's like saying God, karma, spirits, your subconscious. What's the difference? They're all the same
Yeah,
thing.
it's all the same.
Yeah. So that's the way I look at it.
Well, one way I see it is some people have that and some people don't. So
Yeah, I guess yeah, it
it's
comes easier to some. I was born with Neptune on my right on my ascendant,
wow.
so I've always been. Even when I was a little kid, my brother said, "You're queer. You're always dreamy. You're queer. You're weird." So,
I'm fascinated by those things. I actually wanted to interview a psychic, so maybe the next interview could be your psychic adventure.
oh no, get a real practicing psychic.
Get a
I'm
real
not
what?
a practicing psychic.
Oh, okay.
I'm I'm not a
You
practicing.
you've shut that kind of down in a way. I did
Well, it's
notice,
just I'm too lazy to develop it, I think.
yeah, some people want it and some people
Yeah.
don't care for it. Um, but yeah, some people have this gift.
Well, the funny thing is, it's not scary. That thing in the mountain I was talking about, that terrified me because I didn't
Yeah,
recognize.
yeah.
But these, like, whenever I'm taken somewhere by Nemo or whatever, or just in the trance, it's
Mhm.
very calm. It's the
Really.
calmest I ever am, you know, and it's calm, it's mellow,
That's
it's,
so cool that you can meditate like that and just go,
yeah,
and that probably alleviates your spirit and lets you recharge.
I guess in a way.
So, yeah, because it takes people forever to go into a meditation to like just re-energize their mind and body.
I
Most
just go
people
like
can't do that.
that.
Yeah. Oh, I
Yeah.
wish you ran like Zoom meditation classes or something. Um, what else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, that I recently saw a video. It reminded me of you of now that you mentioned this, of a boy that grew up with spirits talking to him, and
Uh-huh.
they were like from other dimensions, and I was taken aback by it because it's so cool that people can be born with that, to be able, he said it, they helped him know how to talk to people, go through school when he was a kid, like different things like that. I
Yeah.
wish I had that. So why do you think,
Yeah, it can be isolating too, you know.
I don't know, I
Like
feel like you would know, you would have insights on people, you would know when people are lying or telling the truth. Do you get that sometimes, that you could tell if people?
most of the time, I can. I'm a bit of
Yeah,
a
yeah.
human line machine. Yeah, I can tell. Anybody can tell this is one thing to always watch out for. Say you're doing a business deal or a
Mhm,
contract or whatever, right?
mhm,
Negotiating something important,
mhm.
and suddenly you feel blank, just
Mm.
blank. It means get out.
That's, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why there's all little tricks like that, right? That you can use.
Or if you're having an argument and you go blank, what does that mean? Does that mean the person is trying to manipulate you?
Could mean you've run out of arguments. Yeah.
No, but if like you lose your train of thought and you're like, no, I had a point to make, you know?
It may be that you just don't want to argue anymore.
Yeah, I think so.
You know. Yeah.
I hate arguing. But anyway, that kid was very fast. That video was very fascinating, and I just think a lot of people might have gifts that they don't share, but I think that can bring something in
Yeah.
people and bring people together in a way. Like if everyone used their gifts, it can just somehow
Well, I
bring
think
more
we
love
will.
into the
I,
world.
I think
Yeah.
we will, but we're not even going to start that until about 2229. So in
Okay.
about a little over 200 years from now, we enter a whole new phase. Humanity
Mhm.
does, and that
And we
phase,
won't
the
be
chart.
here for that.
Well, I hope not. Well, you have to be pretty old, but that chart for that phase, that it's about 2,500 years long,
Mhm.
starts in 2229, but the chart for it has the sun here and Neptune exactly opposite, right on the horizon.
Mhm.
So Neptune is psychic,
Mhm.
spiritual. The horizon, the seventh house, is who you marry or your environment, what you face, what you deal with all your life.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a start of an incredibly widespread
Spiritual
psychic,
awareness.
spiritual psychic awareness for
Yeah.
all of humanity, basically.
Mhm.
And I think that's when we will start. I think all sorts of things will come out of it, like the end of political voting, because people will tend to vote with their feelings and their minds rather than put a
Mhm.
ballot in. Just a lot of things.
Wow.
We're going to start manipulating karma and stuff like that. We'll take, I think, a step towards angelhood. I guess would be it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we're not going to get there for thousands of years, but I think, or hundreds of thousands maybe, but that's one big step. I'd
Mhm.
like to be alive then, to see
I
what
wish,
it
yeah, I
is.
wish that was now, but
Yeah.
I guess there's a reason it isn't.
Well,
Um, are you able to tell if someone would do well in a certain program?
yeah.
Mhm.
You're able to tell if somebody, for instance, should study astrology or not.
Right, right.
If they've got the South Node in Aquarius, they shouldn't, sort of thing.
Oh,
But
really? Because I have South Node in
uh,
Aquarius. Why is that a person with South Node Aquarius shouldn't study
well, Aquarius rules astrology.
that?
Okay? Uranus is an astrology planet, and the South Node
Oh,
usually, and now not always, but in 85% of cases, the South Node usually represents a path that doesn't pay off very well,
okay.
whereas the North Node does. And the
Yeah.
South Node usually leads to difficult decisions, whereas the North Node kind
Mm,
of leads to wise decisions.
interesting.
So
Or
I
something
actually
from the
know,
past. It could be that you've done that in the past and you need to look to your future.
yeah, it can be that.
Mhm.
Yeah, because the South Node, to me anyway, my cosmology is the South Node is old karma. Or it's what you've
Mm.
already done. The North is what you're
Yeah.
supposed to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you've been doing that for 100 years or whatever, say studying astrology, and it's never paid off. But now finally the universe is saying, okay, it's time. We're going to give her a reward now.
Hmm.
So 10 to 20% of the time, the South Node actually showers rewards on you
Hmm.
rather than kicks you out, right?
Ultimately, I
But,
guess you follow where your heart goes. But yeah, I think if I was meant to do astrology, I would have done it by now. But I probably my passion or curiosity around it stems from the South Node, probably. But or
I,
my
the moon is in Sagittarius, your moon, right?
hmm
So is Neptune. So we know you have some psychic ability, right? Your moon is with Neptune. You're always going to have an attraction to astrology.
to anything esoteric, basically.
Anything far out, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So many people, psychics, astrologers have said I have psychic stuff, but
Mhm.
I don't, yeah, I might be intuitive, but I'm not a deliberate psychic where I can see visions and
Yeah.
just know
What
things right off the bat. So
kind of childhood did you have? Did you have two parents and
yeah,
a regular kind of childhood?
regular, but difficult in the sense that we moved from another country at a very young age. So I didn't have the language and I
Right.
struggled with understanding myself and where I fit in.
Because the reason I asked is I this is my idea. I may be wrong, but
Mhm.
I think that psychics, etc., the strong ones tend to come from bad childhoods.
Very bad. It just
Yeah,
brings that
because
out.
yeah, it brings it out
Mm.
because they tend to dissociate, and being psychic is very similar to disassociation.
Yeah. And some people just have that innately. So I try not to like force something that doesn't just
Yeah,
naturally happen.
everything balances out, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I've got the psychic ability, but I fail on other,
Yeah. Yeah.
areas, and you know, so it's, everybody has the same bucket.
Do you, being somewhat psychic, do you find there's energetically you get a bit of what's the right word? Like assurance from the universe? Do you get sort of like a security from that energy? Do you feel like you're safer because
Um,
you know things that other people don't know?
yeah, I do. I get a kind of security from it, not
Mm.
from feeling that I'm psychic or anything, but
No, no,
more
no.
from what's happened.
Yeah.
Like, um, just I trust the psychic. I didn't for many, many years. I thought it was
Mhm.
just, whatever.
Mhm.
But then this Nemo start, like in these group things, started saying things to people that just were off the wall. Like she said to one woman, "Your mother's in a box," and she's sitting in a box and flying, and she's very happy. And the woman came to me later and said her mother died the night before, so this box was it was a coffin taking her to heaven, right? But she just did things like
Ah,
that all the time, and I thought, okay, this is too. This can't be just
yeah.
coincidence, right?
Yeah.
So then when I did those 2 or 3 times when I did go to heaven or the afterlife or whatever it was, um, it was so calm and so mellow, sort of, that I lost my fear of death. I had no fear of death after that.
Ah, okay.
And once you lose that, not much really phases you much, right?
Mhm.
So, I mean, I've got some money and I want to keep it and stuff like that. I
Yeah.
like my pleasures and etc.
Mhm.
I'm not, uh, I'm not worried about life, I guess, is the way to
Yeah.
put
Well, because some people might have, I guess, a sort of depression about life and things like that. So I wonder if when people have that psychic ability, if they have a natural faith or a natural like security that they're surrounded by love or surrounded by
it.
protection or
I don't
something.
think so. Not necessarily, no.
Hmm.
Many psychics are very on the edge, right? They're very nervous
Yeah.
on the edge.
So
Uh,
if you could give advice to like the world, like I don't know, as a psychic, as an astrologer, like having seen things that maybe other people haven't, what do you think people should do more of, or maybe what the world should work towards?
I think they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Okay.
We're slowly getting more merciful, more compassionate.
Yeah, you were saying that.
Nations are understanding other nations, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. So I think that kind of progress has basically never stopped. It has these huge upheavals of like Hitler, et cetera.
Yeah.
But even those upheavals are followed by, better social forms. So I think we're doing what we should. The only thing I think is that um, I don't think there should be nations. I think people should be world citizens. They should be able to go wherever they want, speak whatever they want, work wherever they want, etc.
Okay.
I think that's really um, where I think that's the next step, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think also we need to get to a place where people aren't controlled by bureaucrats and et cetera, et cetera.
Hmm.
And where certain people or certain cliques don't have a undue amount of power over others.
Yeah.
If I would, You know, if I think there's one thing, one evil that it would be good for mankind to drop, it would be the desire for power,
Hmm.
power over others. But the desire for power comes from fear, right?
Fear. I was just gonna say, how do
Yeah,
you tell people to like let go of fear? It's
yeah, it's hard. And so you
yeah.
still have power,
Hmm.
power dynamics. Um, but I think slowly, that'll come slowly.
Hmm.
What happens really is power used to be go out and get my gun and shoot anybody,
Yeah.
yeah. And power has become more and more sophisticated, so that now it's a kind of uh, a kind of fabric that's woven through society. Certain people, everybody has a little bit of power over this or that, and bureaucrats have more power, and presidents have more,
Hmm.
that kind of thing. Um, but it's become very sophisticated. It's often hard now to actually see who is wielding the power. But I think that's just a step. You know, um, Slowly we'll give it up. You know,
Yeah.
slowly when we have no more fear. So one of the big things we can do is give children fathers, and you know, raise children peacefully and wisely. So that they don't
I,
fear.
and on an individual level, is there something that you live by or that you feel
Oh,
strongly about?
yeah. If I have a motto or whatever, I don't have to
Yeah,
follow.
like from your personal experiences as an astrologer, as a person who's had psychic experiences, like, do you feel like
Well,
there is?
even when I was young, even when I was 18 or 19, I thought the best thing is to love humanity,
Hmm.
you know, more than one particular person, just
Yeah,
love everyone.
yeah.
I still believe that.
Hmm.
Uh, but that's probably one of my mottos. I don't
Yeah,
always follow it. Another one is be kind. You know,
yeah.
my son's he's got 2 degrees from McGill. He's got a lousy job at McGill. They're cheap as
Wow.
heck. They don't pay at
Oh
all.
my
But
gosh.
and he's got anxieties and social anxieties and stuff, which is partly my fault because we broke up, his mom and I.
Hmm.
But I always said to him, Chris, there's only one thing I really want you to be, and that's kind.
Hmm.
And he is very kind. So, you know, I just,
Yeah, that's good.
kindness and love to me are the
Yeah.
greatest. But also, I think you have to be willing to take up the sword when you need it.
Hmm.
I mean, and I keep quoting the Bible. You'd think I'd read it or something, but Christ said in the Bible, he said, "I have not come to bring peace, but war."
Hmm.
They call him the Prince of Peace, which is just it's a Catholic lie, right? He basically said, "I've come to bring division,"
I
and
did not
because
know
his
that.
ideas were new and disruptive. Yeah,
Mm.
it's right there. He says it in his own, well, in Matthew or somebody quotes him,
Oh,
but I've not come to bring peace, but war. And what he's saying is sometimes you just gotta have the sword to in the tarot and occultism, etc. Sword means idea. Right?
oh,
If you're the Ace of Swords, you're somebody who's got the idea.
oh.
And that's what Christ is saying. He says, I'm bringing you a new idea. It's called
Yeah,
mercy, and et cetera, et cetera,
yeah,
and that your thoughts can be sins, et cetera.
yeah.
That was really disruptive to the Judaism
Okay.
of the day.
Oh,
So he was a warrior, really. So he went in the temple, threw all the tables over, and he had lots of temper tantrums. You know,
that's it's nice to hear things like that because when people talk about the Bible, you don't always hear that kind of version of it. But that to me is inspiring because like you get to really be in that moment as if it was happening.
well, the trick is to read the Bible, not to listen to the people who have read it,
Yeah, and it
because
is hard.
everybody has an agenda. You know, it's
Yeah.
better to go to the source sometimes.
Well,
In the
with
Bible, there's lots of bad stuff there too. God in the Old Testament, God's telling these people to go out and commit genocide. He says, I want you to kill every woman, child, man,
really,
cow, dog. Yeah. When after they've left Egypt and they're trying to establish their land and that, and it's that kind of period where there's a lot of nations around. One of them are the Jews, are the Israelites.
Mhm.
And he says, those people worship golden calves. I want you to go in there and wipe every single thing out. And what happens is they don't. They go and they have the war and they kill the men, the warriors and that. But they don't kill the cows and all the women because they feel guilty, right? They're
Mhm.
humans. So God punishes them for not following his orders. So, that stuff in the Bible, some of the stuff isn't, you wouldn't want it as a moral guide.
Do you think because I always thought that yes, there's some things in the Bible that are like actual stories, but
Mhm.
I always think some of it can be literal, but some of it is symbolic. Do you think everything
Oh,
is
yeah.
literal?
I think the Bible is a great work of literature.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of inspiration in it. There's a lot of psychic and
Yeah.
moral and even godlike stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a lot of human mistakes, I think, in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like this guy who said, well, God said, go and wipe out all these people. Well, he probably was just a local guy who wanted to commit genocide. So he said, oh, God says this, right? We don't know what
Yeah.
God said. In
Yeah.
fact, we don't know what God ever spoke, you know?
I almost feel like if people are reading the Bible, they should really look beyond what is being said and really feel what the message is sending them because it's
Yeah.
so personal. And I always think the golden rule, just don't harm anyone. Don't harm
Yeah,
yourself,
that's a good one. That's a good one
don't harm
too.
other people. So like as long as you can interpret around that,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like you could get something out of it. Um, well, parent-child relationships, can you often see um, if a parent and a child should just maybe not associate as much, or do you think
Oh, yeah.
that they could always bring a mutual?
Um, you can see it in most charts actually
Mhm,
more than not.
mhm.
Uh, you can see how the parents were, what the marriage was like, and
Yeah.
what effect that had on the child.
So you can
Uh,
see in the chart the person's experience growing up with their parents.
yeah, I'll often say your parents didn't get along, and that
Okay.
affects your attempts to
So you
make.
might say to someone, it's okay if you need to separate from your parent, or because I find a lot of
Yeah,
people
yeah,
they
yeah.
have yeah they
That's
have
something I would rarely say, but it would
mhm,
have to be a pretty drastic thing. But yes,
drastic.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
say it more often with couples.
right.
Like don't feel guilty about leaving this guy. Sort
Okay.
of thing.
Um, do you have do you often have insight in the chart about how it might be limiting them, that kind of a relationship, and how
It might limit the child.
yeah, because
Um,
what I find is some people are
yeah.
limited by their parents like control over them, and
Uh-huh.
and because a parent
Yeah.
child relationship is meant to be sacred, it's really governs you because
Yeah.
they're supposed to be this like holy symbol
Yeah. Well,
to
that concept of the parent-child, the sacredness, that's only 100 years old or so.
yeah.
And in the old days, they didn't have that concept at all.
Well, some people just
Um,
can't let go. Like it's
yeah.
like they have such a they're so controlled.
Yeah. Yeah. You see that.
So
What I mostly see in charts is the father's absent. You can see if the father's
mm,
absent. The father and mother are always fighting.
yeah.
The father was in and out. The father was dictatorial.
Mhm,
Or if this, like Saturn's in the 10th, the father was a hard guy. He was a taskmaster, right?
mhm.
Um, just things like that you can see. Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, there are degrees too. Like um, there's a degree of Leo where the child just feels abandoned, even if he has two parents.
Mhm.
He feels abandoned by them and is always, like he writes, always clinging to the
Mhm.
overalls of the gardener or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So yeah, you see that. Um, To the degree it might be overwhelming or, impacting the person's life negatively, you would tend to see that more while you're doing the reading, like from what they tell you.
Okay.
I would just give the hint. I'd say, oh, your dad looks like he was, kind of severe or kind of,
Yeah.
especially if you got Mars involved or something, or your
Mhm.
dad looks like he was, a taskmaster or something. They'll say, oh my God, my dad, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
most of it comes from the client.
Okay. If whatever aspects that would make someone highly sexual, um,
Oh, um,
y- is it,
Scorpio,
yeah,
that's a
think of
sign of sex,
Scorpio,
and Taurus. Scorpio and Taurus are really the sexual signs.
because I was
Uh,
wondering if love is mainly sexual for them or it can be meaningful.
remember we were talking a little earlier about planets in the eighth house.
Yes.
For those people, sex is, you might say, almost more important than love, or
Yes.
they confuse sex with love. They think
Yeah.
sex is love.
Yeah.
So that there's that. Um, Scorpio, having it say in your rising or solar fifth house, um, can just mean that you have a deep approach to romance. You
Mhm.
know,
But
It-
I always wonder, can that person really tell if they love a person or is sex always, is love really just superficial because it's only when they get that intimacy that they feel close to the person and it's never anything more.
yeah, physical intimacy counts for a lot whenever you
Mhm.
have Scorpio around.
Mhm.
Um, but what your question is sort of forgetting is that there are 1,000 kinds of love.
Mhm.
you know so who's to say what's a better love than the other, or above it or below it,
Yeah.
or but Scorpios and Taurus, are, if you had either of them in the fifth, you probably have a sexualized romantic
Mhm.
nature. Just go on your instincts, just let it develop. The
But
most successful people don't use astrology.
yeah. Yeah.
If
You
they just
can't, sometimes you can't go by that. You just have to follow your heart.
well, yeah,
Um,
people like a businessman can be just, a really good businessman, and he's got all his instincts are for business. He
mhm.
doesn't need some astrologer coming and telling him you should
No,
do this for
no.
business.
Yes.
He knows way more than the astrologer, just intuitively.
Yeah. I think it's people that
Yeah.
have a heaviness or are stuck and need some hope mostly.
Mhm.
But what I
Yeah.
was going to say, that if anything were to happen to someone health wise, like would they just get up and cheat? You know what I mean? Because they can't sustain a relationship without sex.
Oh, you're with somebody and then suddenly you became paralyzed in a car accident.
Do you just
Right.
get up and like leave because you can't sustain a relationship without sex?
I don't think so. I
Mhm.
don't think so. Yeah, I certainly possible. I'm sure some people would be like that,
Mhm.
but Scorpio is also one of the most loyal of signs.
Mhm.
Scorpio doesn't. It's very rare for Scorpio to break up a marriage. Aquarius the same, very
But
rare.
I don't mean sun in Scorpio. I mean the placement of.
I think it would sexualize romance, but I think it would also deepen and add a layer of loyalty to romance.
Oh,
I'd
interesting.
be worried more if I had Gemini in the fifth cusp. Yeah,
Oh, true. Very
right.
true.
Yeah.
Well, I
And
don't want to.
Scorpios don't really need sex per se. I mean, I'm forgetting about the fifth house now. Say you just
Yeah.
had a Scorpio and somebody else married, and
Yeah.
that somebody else had an accident and was paralyzed. A
Mhm.
Scorpio could still have sex. They would do things like masturbate in front of them, or
Mhm.
do any weird stuff. And
Yeah.
Scorpio would, just to keep it alive.
Okay. Now I get the difference. Thank you so much, Tim. And you're, again, so wonderful. And I love talking to you. And
Is this
I'll
is this skinny version going to be on YouTube also?
yeah.
Well,
You
send it
look
link up
great
there.
either way. You're very easy to talk to. And I wish you so well.